Tonight on News 5 Live, Belize now has the highest debt-to-GDP ratio in the entire Caribbean and Central American region. Meanwhile, the government continues budget consultations with the unions. Guatemalans plan to protest for Belize to reopen its land border. PM Briceño weighs in. And get your lobster because the season closes soon. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast.
If we are only as strong as our
newscast is brought to you by the Belize Bank Limited. Our country, your bank.
Good evening. Welcome to News 5 Live for Wednesday, February 11th. I am Marlene Cuellar. The government continued budget consultations today, preparing for the presentation of the budget in March. Today, a team of high-level ministers met with the Belize National Teachers Union. Deputy Prime Minister Cordell Hyde and Ministers Francis Fonseca and Henry Charles Usher sat down with BNTU National President Senator Elena Smith and members of the executive. The government made presentations regarding the state of the nation's economy. It has been a continuous declaration of the new administration that the country is in a financial chokehold. This evening, the government released an analysis of the state of the nation's economy. The report states that Belize's unemployment rate is more than triple the average unemployment rate throughout the Caribbean and more than quadruple that of Central America. That government revenues fell by almost 30%, or over $300 million in 2020. And at 134.1%, Belize now has the highest debt-to-GDP ratio in the entire Caribbean and Central American region. The Briceño administration says that it took the Barrow administration 1 year to rack up a debt of over $500 million in 2020. Government debt has increased by almost $2 billion. Prime Minister John Briceño and his PUP government have the challenge of reviving the economy. Prime Minister Briceño will present his fiscal budget in a few weeks. So the consultations with social partners in the public and private sectors are being held. Deputy Prime Minister Hyde says today's meeting was fruitful.
I think we've had very fruitful discussions, very positive discussions, done in an atmosphere of partnership, because at the end of the day, we're not enemies, we're partners, we have to be. It's not about PUP or UDP, it's about being Belizeans and about trying to find the right solutions to the challenging problems that we have. And so we've had long, healthy, fruitful, productive discussions, and those discussions will continue.
Have the unions made proposals that the government is willing to consider?
Oh yeah, ton-load of proposals. They've been rather helpful in terms of cost-saving measures, in terms of revenue enhancement measures that have been neglected over the long years at the UDP. They've been rather helpful, and some of those ideas we've had already, but they've helped us to fine-tune those, and those discussions will continue, and we look forward to, at the end of the day, reaching some sort of middle ground where we dispel of our shared responsibility, our shared duty, obligation to the people of this country to come up with a workable, sustainable, and very equitable homegrown plan of recovery, because we are at a bad place right now. I think it's very clear to all, and it should be clear to all, how bad things are in this country. We have 64,000 people who are unemployed, can't find work, another 82,000 people who are underemployed, working but not enough, getting paid but not enough, really, really dire conditions.
Are the unions completely opposed to a wage cut or freeze?
You'd have to ask them that, but I don't, to hazard a guess, I think at the end of the day, we've said to them that everything is on the table. We are looking quite comprehensively at everything, and that's the last thing we would want to do, so we're looking at everything else to make sure that, to try to put us in a position where we wouldn't have to go there, but ultimately if we have to go there, we will make that case to them, and they're prepared to listen to that. That's my impression.
Michael Perfit is saying that the PUP inherited a healthy economy.
You know Michael Perfit, now a very funny guy, right? I think he was joking. He had to be joking, because everybody and their granny know how bad things are in this country. You know, must have been healthy for them, but not healthy for the vast majority of people out here.
National President of the Belize National Teachers Union, Senator Elena Smith, says that the meeting was cordial. She added that the government was open to suggestions. However, they did not discuss the matter of a wage cut.
Ministers presented to us the situation with the country, what is the economic situation, and what it is that the government needs to achieve in terms of the deficit that we have.
Did the BNT make any proposal in terms of the way forward?
Yes, we shared with them, as we've normally done, some of these cost-saving measures and revenue enhancement measures. We also shared with them some of the concerns of our members in terms of, what would be the plan in being able to bridge that deficit gap.
Is the BNTU completely opposed to a salary freeze or wage cut? Was that discussed?
Well, we did not have a discussion in terms of whether there's going to be a salary cut definitively, but we discussed what are the areas and what are the things that needs to be done to ensure that we can bridge that gap. We will be having some documentation coming from the ministry or from the government that they can provide to us so that we can see what has been done thus far, what those will yield in terms of the proposed measures, and then what would be left for us to be able to consider in terms of how we would bridge that remaining balance. And then when that time comes, then we are going to be discussing what other measures need to be put in place.
Is the COVID-19 pandemic, can the government really enhance revenue collection during this time?
Well, there are things that we believe that as a government internally they can do to assist in that area. We know that a lot of our people have not been employed, and so they're not contributing, but there are measures that they can take internally from the government and also externally that they can take to be able to do that.
How would you describe the atmosphere of the meeting?
It was very cordial, very respectful. We were able to present our viewpoints, and we were able to ask questions, and we were able to be honest and open with the discussions.
Following today's budget consultation with the BNTU, Deputy Prime Minister Cordell Hyde and Ministers Francis Fonseca and Henry Charles Usher were asked if cabinet ministers received a 10% salary cut. Prime Minister Briceño made that announcement in December 2020. But in a recent interview with the media, the PSU's first Vice President, Dean Flowers, said that he had received documents showing otherwise. So we asked the Deputy Prime Minister about it.
I think we've had very fruitful discussions, very positive discussions, done in an atmosphere of partnership, because at the end of the day, we're not enemies, we're partners, we have to be. It's not about PUP or UDP, it's about being Belizeans and about trying to find the right solutions to the challenging problems that we have. And so we've had long, healthy, fruitful, productive discussions, and those discussions will continue.
Have the unions made proposals that the government is willing to consider?
Oh yeah, ton load of proposals. They've been rather helpful in terms of cost-saving measures, in terms of revenue enhancement measures that have been neglected over the long years at the UDP. They've been rather helpful, and some of those ideas we've had already, but they've helped us to fine-tune those, and those discussions will continue, and we look forward to, at the end of the day, reaching some sort of middle ground where we dispel of our shared responsibility, our shared duty, obligation to the people of this country to come up with a workable, sustainable, and very equitable homegrown plan of recovery, because we are at a bad place right now. I think it's very clear to all, and it should be clear to all, how bad things are in this country. We have 64,000 people who are unemployed, can't find work, another 82,000 people who are underemployed, working but not enough, getting paid but not enough, really, really dire conditions.
Are the unions completely opposed to a wage cut or freeze?
You'd have to ask them that, but I don't, to hazard a guess, I think at the end of the day, we've said to them that everything is on the table. We are looking quite comprehensively at everything, and that's the last thing we would want to do. So we're looking at everything else to make sure that, to try to put us in a position where we wouldn't have to go there. But ultimately, if we have to go there, we will make that case to them, and they're prepared to listen to that. That's my impression.
Michael Perfit is saying that the PUP inherited a healthy economy.
You know, Michael Perfit now a very funny guy, right? I think he was joking. He had to be joking, because everybody and their granny know how bad things are in this country. You know, must have been healthy for them, but not healthy for the vast majority of people out here.
Earlier this week, we told you about the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry's letter to Prime Minister Briceño. The BCCI wrote PM Briceño to share their concerns and recommendations regarding wage cuts in the public service. Some have expressed that the more considerable problem is that a wage cut can have a ripple effect on the economy and livelihoods of those in the public sector. Today, President of BCCI Marissa Longsworth shared some of those concerns, noting that there are areas that haven't been adequately addressed through the consultations.
While we agree to the need for the drastic action that has to happen, as it relates to budget planning, we are still yet to hear, and even in our consultations, it was not clear relating to what stimulation is going to be provided, even in terms, and you would have seen in our letter, even in terms of where do the savings go? If you do a cut, where are the savings from that cut going? Because if it goes, for example, into just paying debt, then that means that the social construct of society, when you have people that need more but are not able to pay for it themselves because their spending power is reduced, what will be put in place to stimulate growth in society to be able to bring the population back to a good quality of life and good earning of livelihood? And that also brings us to a very important point that the business community can't ignore, which is the fact that, especially in a time where we don't have tourists coming in to spend their money, we rely very heavily on spending from the local, within the local economy. Any cut to public sector wages is a cut to supermarkets, to gas stations, to bill collectors, even the staycations for people to stay at home and vacation. The luxuries of those sorts of things disappear when you reduce the spending power of the population. And we have questions as it relates to whether, if you save on the front end with cutting of salaries, what happens with GST collections if people are spending less? What happens with business tax collections if the companies and entities are earning less because people are spending less? So are we effectively filling the gap, or are we filling it at one end but then causing a larger gap at the other end? And these are the sorts of questions that the Chamber doesn't feel has been fully answered.
And in an attempt to get more revenue going, Cabinet approved the reopening of Maritime Borders for yachting tourism. The reopening does come with conditions, including adherence to public health safety protocols, which means that the crew and passengers must present a negative COVID-19 test to enter Belize. Port Commissioner retired Major Gilbert Suazo says that the reopening of the Maritime Borders for tourism requires efficient, safe boarding and vessel clearance practices. While that's one more border entry point that the country is open, the Guatemalans in Melchor de Mencos are calling for the Belizean government to reopen the western border. Like Chetumal, Melchor relies heavily on Belizeans for their economy, and the Guatemalans in the border community are planning a protest on Monday. When asked about the timeline for reopening the land borders, PM Brisenia says it won't happen until vaccines are acquired.
I could appreciate the political pressure that he finds himself with. I know hopefully it makes him understand, just like our friends in Mexico, in Chetumal, how important we are to their economy. But the reality is that we just cannot be traveling freely right now because of COVID. And until we have that fully under control, I don't see us opening up the border just freely so that people can come in and to come in and out as they wish. I wish the people from Melchor de Mencos well. I understand the political pressures they may be, but we are a sovereign country, and we are going to do what we believe it is in the best interest of Belize at this time, because COVID is still not under control. It is not in the interest of the country to opening up of borders to people to be moving in and out on the land borders. That's why we did the airport, but with great, we made sure that we have some serious controls as to how you come in and leave. As you come in, they test you, to ensure that we can control COVID as best as we possibly can until we could get the vaccines into the country.
And in crime news, the body of Michael Escalante was found dumped on the George Price Highway just before midday on Wednesday. The Belize Police Department is actively searching for Escalante's missing red four-door Great Wall Wingo pickup truck that was stolen. Escalante was found dead between miles 33 and 34 in a pool of blood. Witnesses say that Escalante was shot once to the head and his body discarded by the killer or killers. Originally from Orange Walk, Escalante worked as a salesman for many years for German Vega and Sons. He reportedly left Belmopan on that day and was making his way home when he was killed. His brother Manuel Escalante says the family has no idea why anyone would want him dead.
He was a good father, good friend, good everything. He was friendly with everybody. Everybody. He was I tell you, I was laughing, you know. What I can tell you with him. He was very good brother. I was very shocked.
Do you know why he was killed so brutally?
No. I don't know nothing about that.
Does he usually travel out districts to make sales and deliveries?
Like I can answer that. I don't know. He used to go around Kaya, that area, but I don't know exactly where.
When was the last time you spoke with Mr. Mike, and what was the conversation like?
We always chat by phone because he was working and I am working on the kiln, so I'm just chat by phone. I was always chat.
Okay.
You know, like brothers. Mm-hmm.
And did he say that something was wrong with him, or?
No. He just I called him the last time. He was assaulted the last. I don't know. Well, he got assaulted one time. Yeah, the second time it happened to him and they killed him.
Okay. So everything seemed normal.
Yes.
Will there be criminal charges against former Minister Montero? We'll give you that update when we come back. key promises that the People's United Party made before coming into office was to give land to first-time landowners. At the Lands Department in Belize City, dozens of persons would gather to submit applications. Hundreds more would appear when Deputy Prime Minister Cordell Hyde would hold public consultations in different areas. His next location will be Cayo, and it is expected that hundreds of people will show up. Hyde says that this shows the level of inequity when it comes to land distribution in the country.
Quite a lot. It speaks to how much deprivation and how much inequity exists in this country, where a handful of people have a lot of land and ordinary people don't. And you know, we welcome the fact that people want to sign up for land. We welcome the fact that so many of our people are coming forward to make us know that they don't have land and they need land. And we ask them for patience and for time as we try to find where exactly these lands are available. Our people in the ministry have been tasked with finding that out. I'm hoping to get a report over the next few days as to where exactly in the Belize district, the closest we can find to Belize City, lands exist. And we'll make that available freely and fairly to all those people who don't have land. We've not been asking for any minister's letters. We've stopped that so people can freely apply, but we beg of people to not congregate so much at the offices in such massive crowds because it's just not healthy.
On Tuesday, we reported on the joint statement from the Maya Leaders Alliance and Julian Chess Society, as well as the Toledo Alcaldes Association, on the former commissioner of the Toledo Maya Land Rights Commission, Lisel Alamia's new venture. Through a newspaper advertisement, Alamia announced that she is the agent for a private landowner around Indian Creek Village. Well, the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs is sounding off on Alamia's new role. The ministry says it is concerned and disappointed that Alamia, as the agent for the private landowner, has asserted ownership of the large tract of land because she is aware of the complex issues at hand and has, quote, made such a statement knowing the difficulties and potential conflicts it has caused. The police department had to be requested to visit Indian Creek in order to defuse a potentially explosive situation, unquote. The ministry's release says that the consent ruling of the Caribbean Court of Justice in 2015 called on all parties to respectfully balance competing interests of Maya customary land rights and private ownership by third parties and interests, but that Alamia's actions were unhelpful and not in good faith. The ministry commits to work with commissioners of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, Gregory Chuck, to carry out the consent order of the CCJ in a manner beneficial to all stakeholders. News 5 asked Minister of Natural Resources, Cordell Hyde, about it.
I don't have enough information on that, Polo. You know, but we have to stop. In this country, we have to stop talking at each other and talking to each other. You know, it's kind of tragic that you end up in a situation where the former liaison for the government on the communal land issues suddenly change sides and is very critical of the whole process. You know, hopefully they can get together and work that out.
Will the former UDP Minister of Works, Rene Montero, and his CEO, Errol Gentle, face criminal charges? The answer now lies with the Director of Public Prosecutions. That's because the Belize Police Department has reportedly handed the file over to the DPP's office. The police began investigating Montero and Gentle after the Ministry of Infrastructure, Development and Housing made an official complaint, alleging that Montero wantonly abused and misused his ministry's resources for private gain. Prime Minister John Brisenia says that employees in the ministry have made several allegations against their former boss.
The Minister of Infrastructure Development has already taken out a lot of information and affidavits from employees at that ministry, which was first the Ministry of Works, where they laid out the allegations that were made against the former Minister Montero, where the allegations were that he was using government employees working his farm, government diesel, government pickups, government equipment, even equipment, heavy duty equipment was found in his farm. And the people at the Ministry of Works had to go there, or the infrastructure development had to go there and physically move those equipment from there.
Today, a virtual certificate ceremony was held for the first of a 2020 cohort of public officers who completed a professional development training. It's been over a decade that public officers have not been allowed to train, but these 40 public officers are now eligible for promotion. News 5's Dwayne Moody reports.
It's been over a decade since professional development training has been undertaken by the government for those in public service. But today, 40 public officers were awarded their certificates of completion for having successfully participated in an 8-week virtual course headed by the Ministry of Public Service. The public officers are now armed with the skills and knowledge of their respective departments and the government system, a requirement for the promotional program.
The clerical program first came into effect in 1982 under the General Orders for Public Service. Back then, the public service was known as establishment. This examination was designed to primarily test the officer's power of expression, general knowledge of the country, and its system of government.
Second-class clerk Cordelia Belazaire from the Ministry of Blue Economy and Civil Aviation topped the virtual clerical training. While it is the first group in quite some time, Belazaire shared that while the public system is filled with challenges, it is the duty of public officers to implement government policies and stop corruption.
It is filled with many hard challenges, limited opportunities, and little to no rewards. It is a system that moves very slowly and in incremental fashion. It is a system where bad behaviors often go unpunished and good behaviors are frequently shrugged off. How can I motivate officers who, like myself, often feel as though they have been intentionally victimized? Officers with very high academic qualification who are frequently rejected or excluded for consideration for promotion because they have not yet completed the program. Officers who have been told, you don't meet the requirement for promotion despite already performing the duties. Officers who have been exposed to many administrative malpractices without any glimmer of hope. Our effectiveness determines whether our government succeeds and whether it meets its obligation to the public. No government would be able to do its job without public officers. The government depends on us to implement its policies for situations that have myriad causes.
The Public Service Union believes that the program creates opportunities for public officers to develop into future public service leaders.
When the public service functions the way it should, we all win. It is therefore my commitment to you today to ensure that the Public Service Union continues to play an active and participatory role in ensuring that public officers are afforded relevant and timely development programs and training to aid in their professional growth, thus fostering and preparing them to transition into highly qualified and trained career public officers.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
And in today's COVID stats, there are 7 new confirmed cases of the virus, bringing the total number of confirmed cases to 12,114 for the country. Fortunately, no new deaths were reported, so that total still is 313. The Ministry of Health and Wellness confirmed this evening that there were 40 new recoveries, and there's still 196 active cases in the country. The ministry urges the public to wear a face mask properly, maintain consistent physical distancing, avoid social gatherings, and wash and sanitize hands often. Last chance for a romantic lobster dinner this Valentine's weekend. That story coming up after the break.
What a beautiful morning in Popsville. Time to check the crops. Uh-oh, the insects are back. Farmer Ricky plans to double his dosage to get rid of these pests once and for all. Oh no, no more insecticide. Well, off to the store we go. Hey, it's good old Joe.
Good morning, Joe. I'd like to get 4 bottles of Compound V, please. I'm double dosing to fight back the insects.
Compound V, you said? It doesn't sound familiar.
Let me see what you have.
Ricky, where did you get this product? It doesn't have proper label information and could be filled with highly hazardous chemicals called persistent organic pollutants. You should really get one that's POPs free, which is safer and approved for pest control. Ricky, it's time we talked about the dangers of misusing highly toxic pesticides. Some pesticides contain highly hazardous ingredients that can harm you and your loved ones if handled incorrectly. So when we improperly store pesticides, it can affect our health in the long and short term. To be safe, make sure to remember these following tips to avoid unnecessary chemical exposure. It's important to always read your label fully before using any treatment on your crops. To avoid dangerous contact with pesticides, including airborne insecticides, make sure to wear appropriate personal protective equipment. Apply the recommended chemical dosage and use far away from human contact and from active winds. To avoid cross-contamination, make sure to follow these simple steps to dispose of pesticide containers. And no matter what you do, don't throw it in any old waste bin. Always make sure to triple rinse, puncture, and store separately for proper disposal.
And for an even safer approach to pesticide use, consider switching to organic farming and other integrated pest management processes.
For more information on how to dispose of hazardous pesticides, contact your local waste management agency or visit stopthepops.com for more details. Sometimes danger lurks where you least expect it. The more you know, the healthier you can grow.
If you have the budget, it's a great idea to treat your Valentine to some lobster this weekend as the 2020-2021 lobster season winds down on Sunday at midnight and reopens until June 15th. Once the season closes and you are found with lobster in your possession, you will be charged. But this closure, according to Fisheries Officer Mauro Gongora, is 2 weeks earlier than other countries in the region. Gongora says that they recognize that if it is amended in line with the rest of the region, they may be able to reduce challenges that plagues the sector season after season. Here's how he explains it.
Another issue that is affecting us is that the lobster fishery closes in Central America on the 1st of March, at the end of February, sorry. There's a window of 2 weeks when the Belize lobster season closes and when the same lobster season closes in Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, and all the other Central American countries. So there's the potential, well, it really occurs that illegal fishing for lobster is done in Belize during that time, and it could be legally fished, legally sold in these countries. And that is an issue. And so from a department perspective, we're in support of doing the amendments to the legislation. It is in par with the Central American closed season for lobster. That would in effect helps us because it can literally reduce the level of illegal fishing in our waters, and in a sense we would be in compliance with the regional lobster regulations that is currently in place. The lobster regulations at the regional level, it states that it's closed from March to June, 1st of March to the end of June. And so if we were to amend our legislation, I think it would be very helpful.
As the season comes to a close, there is promising news as the Fisheries Department reports that lobster production is up for the 2020-2021 period, with 700,000 pounds of lobster tail processed. According to Fisheries Officer Mauro Gungura, the lobster sector is stable and has been performing well. Annually, lobster brings in revenues of just under $30 million for the year.
In 2020, lobster production was almost 700,000 pounds of lobster tails, which means that we are well above the 5-year average, which is in the range of 625,000 pounds, more or less. So when you look at it this year, and when you compare it to the 5-year average, we're doing pretty well, and it's around 20% increase over that 5-year average. But in general, the lobster fishery of Belize has been stable, relatively stable for the last 30 years. And production has ranged between 400,000 pounds and 600,000 pounds. So the plan for this year, 2000 should say, of 697,000 pounds is well above that average over the last 30 years, you know. And so last year, for example, earnings from the export of tails range in something close to $13.5 million US. So you're talking 27 million Belize dollars from the export of lobsters.
Like all other celebrations in the past year, this February, the month of love, doesn't feel quite the same. But even with restrictions in place, our reporter Doane Moody found out that Belize City residents are still looking forward to the celebration while staying safe at home. What about finding a gift for a special someone? Hard to imagine in these difficult times. But as we found out today, even businesses are showing some love by adjusting prices and packages for the special occasion.
I want to know if you will be my favorite song, my little melody.
I actually love Valentine's Day. I think it's romantic and sweet, and it makes you think of people that you maybe haven't thought about in a while. Send something, give something, share the love.
How you to celebrate Valentine's this year?
Just stay home and stay safe.
Staying home and enjoying my quality time with my loving family.
For one couple from Belize City, they will be getting married on Valentine's Day after being together for almost 2 decades. Meanwhile, others will be going on a romantic getaway trip from home with their special someone. But with the realities of COVID, what are your options? The marketing manager at the Sancas Group says they've created packages for every budget and even created special packages for men.
We do want to add a little something special, you know, and we want to make it affordable for you. So we have many options here, whether you want to cook something nice for your children, for your spouse, for your family, you can come on down here. Discounts on our chocolates, you know, on our wines, on our macaroni and cheese, biscuits, snacks, all kinds of things. We understand the situation, and this is what we're doing as a bottom dollar to give back to our community.
Treats for the entire family. But whether you are going to spend February 14th with your partner or with family, you must still adhere to the quarantine regulations in place. So to stay connected, you can shop in the name of love.
Shop in the name of love. We have a lot of deals. This year we did something different. Normally we go with a matchmaker sale and we bundle stuff. This year we went with individual items, but obviously slash prices due to COVID. We know people are, you know, stretching their dollars. We have those Samsung lovers. That's the latest: S21, 21 Plus, 21 Ultra. We also have for the iPhone lovers, you know, we have the 12, the 12 Pro, 12 Max. So, I mean, we have all the latest stuff, and we also have lower end stuff, you know. We have Androids at $155, we have basic Bluetooth phones at $39, tablets, laptops.
All I want is to be with you.
And for that traditional flower arrangement, you can head on over to downtown Albert Street, where the bouquet sales are lined up street side.
I will be out here from today until Saturday from about 9 to about 6 o'clock, so you can come and get these beautiful bouquets for your loved ones.
What's the cost like for these things?
The small ones are $35 and the big ones are $50.
Meanwhile, Aurelia Shaw of 13 Canal Productions is documenting love stories during this COVID Valentine and is giving prizes to the 4 winning entries.
We're not looking at the technicality or the grammar structure, but simply to be able to showcase by creating your original an original experience, to put it into writing, by having that unique Belizean context and that showcase, your culture or the place where the event took place.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
When we come back, there is a new lead advocate for families and children in Belize.
Are you traveling? Effective January 26, all passengers traveling internationally
It's no surprise that former UDP ministers have been openly critical of the Briceño administration and their decisions. But a recent post by former Minister John Saldivar on Facebook did garner a bit of attention as he blamed the Briceño administration for causing the suffering of more than 200,000 Belizeans. PM Briceño was asked about Saldivar's comments, and here's how he responded.
I think John Saldivar needs to find a job. That's the first thing he needs to do, because politics is over for him. He's never going to get elected ever again. So he needs to go and try to find a job. That he needs to start with, and maybe we could help reduce the unemployment rate in the country. Let's start with that. But for him to just, you see, you lose all sense of credibility when you say these foolish things, man. These things are ludicrous of what he is saying. That now hundreds of thousands, we don't have hundreds of thousands of employees anywhere in Belize, and that all of them have lost their jobs because of the PUP. The people lost their jobs long before. We need to remind people the last 4 quarters before COVID, 3 of them we had the economy contracted, and in 1 of them we only had growth of less than 1%. We were already in a recession before COVID hit us. People don't lose their jobs. Not that COVID hit us, then of course then tourism gone through the door or through the window, and so all of these people now don't have a job. The damage was already there. We are turning things around.
Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Trade and Immigration Eamon Courtney participated in a virtual extraordinary meeting between ministers of Foreign Affairs of the Central American Integration System and the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi. Minister Courtney highlighted that the COVID-19 pandemic presents new and exasperated challenges for refugees and the national systems that protect them. In his remarks, Minister Courtney called for urgent, resource-driven humanitarian and development cooperation to strengthen the region's response. She's the executive director of the Southern Environmental Association and previously worked as the advocacy manager at the Belize Audubon Society. Now, Irene Palacio Morgan has been appointed by the Ministry of Human Development, Families and Indigenous Peoples Affairs as the new chairperson for the National Committee for Families and Children. The mother of 2 says that her desire is, quote, to continue to collaborate with agencies that focus on the well-being of children and families, unquote. When we come back, Superfuria turns 35.
In response to COVID-19, the government of Belize has implemented strict guidelines on persons to practice social distancing to reduce the spread and risk of getting COVID-19. Practicing social distancing is when one maintains a greater than usual distance away from another person. In public health, it is a practice to prevent sick persons from coming in close contact with healthy people. Recent studies are showing that social distance of 3 feet or more decreases the exposure of COVID-19. Before these restrictions, a person with COVID-19 could infect 2.5 persons in 5 days, 406 persons in 30 days. When you put into practice measures to reduce the exposure activities by half of that one infected person, in 5 days you would possibly only infect 1.25, 30 days, 15 persons. Reduce the exposure of that infected person by 75%, in 5 days you infect 0.625, in 30 days 2.5 persons. Remember, the virus does not move on its own, people move it. The more space between you and others, the harder it is for the virus to spread. A health and wellness message from your Ministry of Health.
In partnership with the British High Commission.
As one of the largest cable and internet providers in Belize, CBC strives to provide our customers with the highest standards of quality, value, and service in all aspects of cable TV and internet. Monitoring our systems closely, our technicians combine creative planning and state-of-the-art technology with years of experience and training to develop and provide the most reliable and advanced cable and internet service to exceed your expectations. for CBC and our team of talented engineers, technicians, and customer service representatives, delivering less than the very best is never an option.
Es un hecho que puedes obtener servicios ilimitados con Smart. ¿Cansado de que se corte la línea cuando más necesitas estar conectado? Es un hecho que cuando te suscribes al plan de Smart Plus, obtienes llamadas, textos y datos ilimitados. Y también es un hecho que te puedes suscribir con un grupo de 5 miembros al plan Smart Share y hasta 40 miembros al plan Smart Enterprise para llamadas, textos y datos ilimitados. Smart tiene los verdaderos planes ilimitados. Es un hecho. Sé Smart y vive de forma Smart.
The Superfuria band is celebrating a major milestone in its history, 35 years in existence. The family band of Orange Walk also welcomed their anniversary with an award, a proclamation from the Governor General of Belize. To celebrate the band's 35th anniversary, they are hosting a free virtual show on Sunday at 5 p.m. The Sunday will be streamed on the band's Facebook page. Here's more from Francisco Alcocer, the manager of the band.
This is a great thing for the band, Superfuria band. This is a time that we put all our hard work, all those practice, and so we really, I'm so proud, happy. I even got words to say about it. Music, like I always tell everybody, listen, you got to have the passion and definite. And another thing we will never ever forget, and we cannot forget the audience, because and the medias that make Superfuria. You, the audience, you are make us to celebrate this 35 years. At the same time, I want to say that we'll be celebrating this Sunday, the 14th. And we have two. We have invited people like Kerr Miller, the veteran, and Ben McCoy, two monkey, they play pan one mouth. So please, audience, you will definitely have a good Valentine show. We will be starting at 5. It's virtual show.
And that's the news. Tonight's broadcast is available in both text and streaming video at channel5belize.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page at News 5 Live. I'm Marlene Cuellar. Thanks for joining us, and from all of us here at News 5, please remember to wash your hands, keep your social distance, and stay safe. Good night.